if you have any calming pills, I would suggest that you use them now. Look at this video. I can't believe the British hypocrisy has no boundaries whatsoever. Look who is arriving in the COP. How beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Gentlemen, a dream come true. Look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Together with his brown nose, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, you probably never heard of him, never seen him. He is the new British Prime Minister by the new Labour Party. He is training himself to be the new Tony Blair. And well, he is an absolute opaque figure, funded by Zionism, put into power by Zionism, as we discussed here last week. Declassified UK and Matt Kenner did an enormous job in uncovering Keir Starmer's deep relationships with Israel. And there is more to that. He's launching the unprecedented war on terror on journalism here in the UK. And he's sucking up to Prince Williams, who I understand has genuine concerns about the environment. But I'll tell you what are the concerns of Keir Starmer, the level of hypocrisy you see here. Before we go into the facts, let's analyze his speech. Look at what he's talking about. It's such a setup, this thing here that I'm going to share with you. You get an Oxford, probably you have an Oxford student, first student, and they with a different ethnicity to show how cosmopolitan and welcoming Britain is. And look what he says about the COP, and then we go to the facts.
So I know you're going to COP30 in a couple of days. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for the UK to become a world leader in sustainability?
It's really important that the UK remains a leader in relation to climate change. Very important that we go and show that the United Kingdom cares about this. The most important thing is making the case for countries to continue to work together on this. The obligation to protect the planet is huge and urgent, but there are great opportunities as well in relation to the jobs of the future.
So I know you're going to COP30 in a couple of days.
Ileana, I don't need to say to you, this is not scripted at all. No, this is not rehearsed. It was one take. In one take, they nailed it. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Oh, so natural, isn't that?
Can you explain to us how the UK is a leader, apparently?
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you how the UK is a leader. So we have the COP30 now in Brazil, my land here, right next to me. I think Brazil is, the COP is being called by Brazilian social movements as the corporate green coup, not because it is here, but because it is its nature, latest nature. And we have the Brazilian agribusiness heavily financing the COP, but there are good intentions. It's not all black and white. But in any case, the COP, the Conference of the Parties of the UN Climate Convention, is taking place here in Brazil, Belém, from the 10th until the 21st of November. And one of the main goals is to secure climate aid. So this is also referred as an international climate finance. The aim is to reach 1.3 trillion per year in climate investments by 2035. So this is about funding climate action in countries that have been historically subjected to extractivism by the industrialized nations. I don't like the term developed countries. I think it's a prejudicial, it's charged with racism, and it's also not telling, because would you say China is a developing country?
Yes, China is actually.
Traditionally you'd say China's a developing. No,
but it is. It's like it is a developing country. It just gave up its status as a developing country under the WTO.
Well, and developed towards what, Ileana? Developed towards being like the empire. No, we have our own path. We are not developing towards anything.
I mean, I think that's a different definition of development. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will reject this definition. And But this is about restitution and climate justice, because after years and years of exploitation of the global south to industrialize the global north, it means that these countries are where the most vulnerable population are to climate crisis, to disasters. They are concentrated there. And that's where the majority of world's indigenous people live and deserve protection, deserve to have their lives conserved. And barely has this COP started, countries like US, UA are already sabotaging it. I don't know if they have a fossil prize of the day. You went to the UK for this amazing obstructive work of UK delegates in the COP. So the US is notably absent. And bear in mind, it was very important that the US came because they need to contribute towards the 100 billion goal. So Trump administration withdrew from the Paris Protocol agreement, and it's not participating at all in the climate finance, in this funding, and they are one of the main polluters in the world. There is the polluter pay principle. If you pollute, you pay. If you are industrialized, you pay. If you are destroying forests around the globe, you pay. If your corporations is infiltrating mining and petrol, you have to pay. I think, it's an environmental principle, even in the UK. So, and the European Union is the one paying this fund, basically. The UK government, of course, cheated. Keir Starmer cheated to meet the climate target to this fund. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, claimed that UK would triple its spending on adaptation finance by 2025, comparison to the 2019 levels. And he announced we reached 11.6 billion. It was a cheat. Carbon Brief has revealed that in order to achieve this figure, the UK relabel existing funds for multilateral development. So we have a fund for something else, a humanitarian aid fund, a private sector investment, and you relabeled it as climate finance. And then you inflate the figures without allocating funds. This is the Keir Starmer commitment to the future. And I think laborettes out there should know it. And look, and they made a calculation here without accounting. Their account is that the climate finance in actual figure was 2.5 billion. It was not 11.6 billion. And so in order to be 11.6 billion, it has to be 78% more than it is now. So they're cheating a number, 78% more. They're letting the public know. Yeah, and here is Keir Starmer walking down the red carpet of COP, traveling with Prince William, and then directing his delegates to bear decisions. So, and that's not all. UK will not contribute directly to Brazil's Tropical Forest Forever facility, because we are having fiscal constraints and budget deficits. Let me tell you where this money is going. So the Labour government now is cut the aid from 0.5 gross national income to 0.3 in February, ostensibly to fund defense spending.
God.
To make war. So successively, not only Labour, but predecessors have always been cutting international climate fund.
Yeah, and let's just point out that war is
saying otherwise. He's not saying climate's the oaks. He's saying he's doing triple, when in reality he's 78% short. He is just, according to Carbon Facility, he is just cheating on figures to ignore. And you know what, Ileana? So sorry, you want to comment on something? I'm going to be.
Well, I just want to.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting because this is how he claims that he's the leader, that the UK is the leader in green initiative, and also just to really reiterate that war is one of the things which isn't even in any of the calculations behind, climate justice, climate initiative calculations under COP or under any other sort of like international climate initiative, right? And it is absolutely the biggest polluter, the biggest destroyer of the earth that we have. So all the genocides that the U.S. empire is waging is, and that is why the military
resource extraction in the end of the day.
Resource extraction, destruction, ammunitions, and also the Agent Orange, what I mean? Like, there's all this, it's just absolutely disgusting what they're doing.
And you know what? Nothing more telling than environment destruction to illustrate colonial relationships or exploitational relationships, which today form part of what we call neocolonialism. Because what is neocolonialism? Well, we knew the colonialism, which is a formal governance by a state, by the metropolis. But here we are talking about by proxy, colonialism by proxy. Who is the proxy? This is the corporates. The corporations are the main sponsors of that. The COP are also operating through economical and fiscal exploitation of these peoples. Indigenous people have seen, for instance, large infrastructure projects, missionary, predatory extractivism open up what a brilliant anthropologist of Brazil, Viveiros de Castro, he described. We came and we open up vast demographic deserts of epidemics, massacres, enslavement, expropriation, and not expropriation only of the environment, expropriation of their cosmological foundations, of their existence, of their cultural identity, and we need to understand that we have complicit in this. The global north is the total complicit in this.
It's more than complicit, right?
There is a dossier. It's called Complicit in Destruction. This dossier goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And one of them has a very hard figure that I want to bring here for you. It's around 55 billion in financing, loans, bonds, shares that flowed into 8 mining companies that are overlapping indigenous lands in Brazilian Amazon only between 2016 and 2025. So we are saying that they mapped out the banks and financial institutions funding the mining system that is illegally, because indigenous lands are protected by our constitution, and they do tricks. And I have to highlight the role of the British financial institutions in this, in sustaining companies involving in Amazon destruction, in particular HSBC and Barclays. 2 of the UK's largest banks have financed and held share in multinational mining and trading companies linking to deforestation, contamination, illegal gold supply chains in the Amazon. Anglo-American, what a surprise. The London headquartered mining giant was found to hold hundreds of illegal mining permits in Brazil, overlapping with indigenous territory, including the Yanomami territory, which I have been now. I have a lot to tell about this territory. They almost committed a genocide. They were about to be extinguished. It's unbelievable. The women being raped. Let's not forget someone else, Starlink. Elon Musk Starlink, it's an internet provider now under investigation in Brazil because they have facilitated activity in Amazonian territory of the Yanomami land. So prosecutors seized dozens of terminals from illegal mining operations, Starlinks without a license operating there. So we need to talk about this. When we're talking about environmental destruction, it's for a very good reason that the global South needs to be held accountable.
Global North, the global North.
Yeah. Of course, we have our own internal colonizers. 66% of this 55 billion were a Brazilian own-making Vale, which has, of course, its branches all over the world, connections, joint enterprises with all. Then comes an Anglo-American, 17%. Then Rio Tinto, UK, Australia, Glencore, Switzerland, they are complicit in the destruction of Amazon. And we know, Matt Kenna just mentioned, Amazon, Southcom commander, Amazon has long been the center of geopolitical pressure. It's the last frontier of the accumulation of capital. And Amazon is treated as a national security issue for the US. Yeah, we've seen U.S. General Laura Richards outline the strategy for Latin America. Greater resource. We have to put our foot there. We have to get our foot there. She says this at one point in her video. You know, this is an open declaration by a military U.S. leader, foreign leader, in a continent that's been plagued by CIA interventions. And so it's really complicated. But look at this. I have to say, I understand those indigenous people. Look at this video that went viral in the Brazilian media and should be viral worldwide. This is the Tapajós.
And just want to say that one of our comments actually did say that the indigenous activists are currently blocking the entrance to COP30 for Reuters live stream. So I think they're still at COP, right?
Yeah.
So I think the thing that is like kind of sad. Do you want to continue? Because I think the thing that's a little bit sad about this COP situation, which, as we said before, you know, we talked about with Matt, like often these international institutions, the international organizations infiltrated by U.S. imperialist agendas, they distort the utility of, you know, what they're supposed to be for, their function and purpose. But there is a reason why we would want to keep COP. And I think like Matt is sort of talking about is when you have a framework for accountability, and COP definitely can be a framework for accountability, you know, because every country should be showing what they're supposed to achieve.
What you're saying is absolutely right. Even in form of protest is a form of accountability. These are Tapajós indigenous people. They have their very existence threatened by multinationals trying to privatize the river that give the name Tapajós River, same name of their ethnicity. So they are fighting for their right to exist not only physically, but within their culture, within their beliefs, within their cosmological existence. So I think when they enter there, it's the moment of visibility to say, we don't want this train crossing our territory. We don't want the privatization of our waters and now of our existence. We don't join the commodity system that capitalism try to impose us. So yeah, in a way, they should be sitting on the table, but if they aren't, this protest is going viral worldwide. It's a form of protest. It's a form of accountability. We now know about their suffering. And what Lula did, he went to Tapajós right after. So it's probably, you know, it's the police, police was not violent with them because they received instructions that they should not be violent. Brazilian police can be extremely violent. These are state forces. So I think, yes, slowly we can end this. But we need to highlight how is the global North hijacking the COP as how corporations are trying to hijack. And we have the People's Summit right in front of the COP with the social movements, taking notes of everything that's happening, pushing, pressuring and protesting. So I think it's beautiful that you have visibility, a world visibility to talk about these issues. Yeah, I totally agree with you. We need to keep COP, but we need to keep COP within the lens of the Global South. It's so important that the Global South gives the tone. It's so important that President Lula says, we want Global North. You are responsible. You have been the historical polluter. And you need to help us to preserve our environment. You have extinguished all your rivers. If you travel to the UK, if you travel to Germany, there's not a single land there is natural beauty, there is not being replanted. You know, let us preserve our what we have. We don't need to be constantly in extractivism involved. Yeah, so I think you are absolutely right. So I cut you. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that framing, and also just the fact that it is the global north, historically the polluter. Even currently, they outsource all their manufacturing pollution to global south countries, and then go, why is China have such high, pollution rates when China is the one that's actually leading in green energy? So it's, again, almost across the board. It's very consistent in COP2 that the global north does that. Their targets are not ambitious enough, considering their historical and current contributions to global pollution, including wars, by the way. But they will divert attention and blame China or blame India or blame countries that do actually need to wait. They need to wait, and this is where the development conversation comes in. Development shouldn't be about exploitation, extraction, and corporate takeover, right? There is, and you can see this with China. It's complicated when you have socialism development. Like, there's complicated things you have to weigh and balance and negotiate. But essentially, when you're looking at extreme impoverishment, people who do not have access to medical services, or just, when we're talking about real underdevelopment, like China was 75 years ago, then development is absolutely necessary within the sovereignty and framework and socialist framework that China has achieved. And you can see that it's necessary for countries, especially extremely post-colonial countries that have been, the extraction has been like incredibly destructive to their entire material.
And let's not forget, Ileana, that gold is a commodity that condenses enormous values into small, transportable quantities, meaning that it effectively functions as a currency within the criminal economy and is later laundered through the European banks. Yeah, in the Yanomami case, the report Scars in the Forest of 2022 say that mostly of the gold was laundered in Europe and Dubai. So there is this other side of the mining, the destruction in loco, the destruction of nature, of people, the total destruction of social life, individual life. Then you have gold, very easy to launder. And being laundered in Brazil, but also being laundered in Europe, sent to Europe. And you see Megan Kelly in the end of her show saying, buy gold. Gold is safe. No, don't buy gold. Try not to buy gold. After I went to Yanomami land, I swear to God, I'm not buying gold anymore. It's such a horrific, it's blood.
Yeah.
We saw Sudan.
What's happening in Sudan? Yeah, exactly.
You brought the gold, destroying an entire existence of a civilization.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like one of the currencies of imperialism for sure. And but I would say going into this COP, and it isn't finished yet, but going into this COP, Brazil, really urged China to take a stronger role in this. And China, I think, met Brazil where it wanted by supporting Brazil's leadership within this COP. So as we said before, it's not so simple. There are global north agendas within COP that obviously Brazil needs to fight against, and whether it can or not, is like the ongoing struggle of the global south. But they had some key agreements going into before COP, where they have some energy agreements, corporations on biofuels, wind, solar, and green hydrogen. They also do have environmental agreements where Chinese satellites are to help Amazon deforestation, and also mineral agreements with rare earth and critical minerals. So we'll see, how that gets implemented, but essentially those things are really important for green technology as well, which as you just like put up, China is actually very much the real leader in clean energy, not the UK. The UK is not a leader at all in clean energy.
Oh,
but
yeah, no, the UK is the greatest leader of the worldly world. Whatever it, I don't know if this exists in English, but we say del mundo mundial, of the worldly world. No, UK is ahead of any country in the world with green technology, recycling at your home.
Yeah, like according to Keir Starmer, the UK is. But actually, China is the leader of clean energy. And here we can see from Carbon Brief, the analysis that they actually, for the first time, I think this is 2024, they're referencing 2024.
And you know what the problem is with this, Ileana? It's because China is saying it is possible to have clean energy. You don't need to frack. Exactly. You don't need fracking. You don't need atom energy like Germany did after sanctioning Russia. You know, China is saying, well, actually, different is possible. Oh, this is very threatening because they don't want to change.
I mean, I would say that there's been criticism of China continuing to use coal mines. But the thing is, as they transition into more clean energy, they still need to address the needs of their people. So it's not so simple like, oh, let's just, close all the coal mines and then don't have energy, So they're transitioning. And the thing is, they are actually doing it. So that's why we're seeing things like that thing that you just put up, which is that the CO2 emissions actually went down for the first time.
This is for the skepticals. This is from the Bible of capitalism, The Economist. China cleans energy revolution will reshape politics and market.
So I actually want to show you this. I'm from this article. We actually had Carlos Martinez on last week, and he actually has this tweet up with quotes from that article that Sara just showed, that shows that even The Economist, which is not by any means a pro-China rag, right? But they even have to admit that China's green revolution is actually important. And here's a few quotes from that article. The scale of the renewables revolution in China is almost too vast for the human mind to grasp. At least it's too vast, apparently, for global north minds to grasp, because they're not used to actually doing things, but it's genuinely there. And China has become a new type of superpower, which deploys clean electricity on a planetary scale. I mean, I feel like, what is it trying to say there? That China is going to imperialize people by giving them clean energy? I feel like that's probably what they're trying to say. But China is providing ever greater amounts of clean energy capacity to the world at prices which are cheaper than any alternative, including coal and natural gas. And now this is really, really important for developing countries, even though you don't like that term, but it's important for a lot of global South countries that are incredibly impoverished, as we said, because of colonial practices. So to have a cheaper alternative and a more sustainable alternative. One of the interesting things that China is doing is actually this really big solar farm for Cuba. And that will greatly help a lot of their issues right now with U.S. sanctions. The consequence of U.S. sanctions is incredible, a lack of resources, cutting them off from any ways to make money, and that really does affect people's daily lives and whether or not they have access to things like electricity. So that is kind of an interesting development that China will be doing with Cuba that's supposed to be finishing at the end of this year. So we'll see how that actually helps Cuba in the long term. But, I'm excited I hope so, because when I interview people about Cuba, the U.S. sanctions and the crackdown, like we discussed with Matt, Cuba is definitely in the crosshairs of.
Yeah, we need to talk about Cuba. For sure.
Yeah, and so they need as much support as possible because they're really on the number one enemy list of the U.S. And so, so as you can see here, even The Economist is saying, this. Even if climate change is not your priority, you should be excited at the prospect of cheap, abundant, clean energy and its promise to improve billions of lives in developing countries. The world needs what China has to offer. It should take it, which is kind of shocking for the economists to say that, but I think it's kind of undeniable at this point. And the tangible effects of this is that not only did China's own emissions go into reverse for the first time. Its clean energy exports in 2024 alone will also cut overseas CO2 by 1%, which is the article that you showed in the beginning. So it's a significant thing, for countries that are facing extreme pollution, but still need to, in some way, develop their own resources for protection or sovereignty. So here, it talks about all the solar panels, electric vehicles, etc., which, the US is completely falling behind because, again, Trump is going drill, baby, drill, and believing that climate change is a hoax, which the analysis on whether or not climate change is a hoax is largely irrelevant when you look at the tangible effects of corporations just throwing toxic waste into the river. You need
it defies logic, doesn't it? It defies logic that we are constantly producing waste. Everybody knows plastic is waste, doesn't return to nature. It defies logic to call this as a hoax. Do you think the planet where we live without destroying it is the same that we live just daily destroying it? I mean, the amount of things we buy, we throw away, we waste, food waste, the interventions, the chemical interventions in nature to make it produce more, the animals in cages. Do you honestly think this has no impact? This only thing, this is not threatening to the planet? You need to believe in Santa Claus, and you need to believe that the resources are never to extinguish.
Right. Yeah,
you
exactly.
need to believe this. You need to believe it defines human basic logic. And sometimes I'm shocked when people want to say this doesn't exist. We are destroying constantly nature. You and I, people in the audience, we are
on the internet and
we need to destroy less.
And also we have to just kind of, we just have to kind of remember that these corporations have an incentive to lie and confuse people. A lot of times the criticisms, again, of these climate initiatives are criticisms of greenwashing. And greenwashing is different. It's, again, a covering of imperialist crimes, a covering of neo-colonial crimes. It's not actually, you know what I mean? It should be equated with the environmental issues that we're having.
And let me tell you something. This problem is different from other problems that we have because we have a ticking time. This is urgent. Why to think about a vision of future if we may not have one? The problem with this, with environment, is the urgency of it, the extent, the intensity, but what makes it priority is the need for fast speed intervention, not for tomorrow, not for today, not the delays practices that we have in the UK, the delay practices that we have in the US. We know how those governments operate, like in this fund to Brazil, the Tropical Forest Forever Fund. The UK said, we're going to look into it. We know what it means. It's a delay, protect, procrastination practice. They won't say no, so it doesn't come in the headlines. They said a blunt no, but they will never implement it. This is modus operandi of UK institutions towards people's rights. People may remember Daniel Blake, the film from Ken Loach, where Daniel Blake is a poor man depending on his right, his social right. He is in a difficult situation. And he gets denied, and dies. And this is a true reality. It's not exaggeration in the UK. The Tories, the Conservatives, implemented a practice to deny disability benefits to people who could not go to work through a disability. And people, although they knew they had the right, will only have the right granted after the appeal, meaning for 6 months they won't be able to eat, they won't able maybe to live somewhere, and a lot of suicides happen there. So this delay practice is necropolicies in many ways. Let people die. Let people die because we are going, what they need now, we're going to give in 6 months. Tell people to eat in 6 months' time. See what happens. And this is the same practice they apply on environment in Britain. You can follow the headlines. It's everywhere. Well, we're going to postpone this. We're going to leave it for later. This is the standard modus operandi of hypocrisy, British hypocrisy.